In 1997, the Wolves hired a new head coach, and with John Anderson in place, they also needed a new general manager. For that, they chose a guy who had spent just 2 seasons in hockey operations, but who had already had an IHL championship under his belt.
Chevy was really special because when he's the youngest manager, I think, to come into the league. And let me tell you, the great thing about Chevy is I always felt that a smart person when they ask the right questions. I think for the first 4 or 5 years, I never answered so many questions. I couldn't just tell him something. It was why.
Chevy was the type of guy that he never stopped thinking about hockey. And I remember we were on a plane one day and coming back, and the I had just instituted a salary cap. I think it was at 1.2 million. Was that what it was at, Don? Something like that. And Chevy was reading this article in Sports Illustrated where a football team insured all of the bonuses at the end. So it was almost like placing a bet so you can insure it for like a quarter of what it would cost you to pay. So Chevy goes, well, why don't we do that? And we ended up doing it, and I think we won that year, went to the finals, and the bonuses were way up there, but we kept under the cap because we paid less for that. So, I mean, he was always thinking,
Wow. Yes, he does.
His job interview wasn't the first time Kevin Cheveldayoff met Don Levin.
My initial impression of Don even dates farther back than me being hired by the Wolves. When I was with the Denver Grizzlies and we were playing, I guess it would have been Salt Lake. We were playing in Manitoba, and we had a flight delay. And so half of the team ended up having to fly through Toronto, and half of the team ended up having to fly through Minneapolis just to get in time for the Wolves game. And it was a TV game that night, so it was a very big production and everything like that. Well, I had gotten there with half the team and literally probably the wrong half of the team's equipment. And the head coach, Butch Goring, flew the other direction and came with half the team, probably the other half. And so we got to the rink and literally, had bagels for pregame meal. And long story short, by the time we were, trying to get out for warm-up, things were getting pushed back and back and back. And I remember seeing this guy, walking around and pacing around and all anxious and angry and like, where are they? What are they doing? And why aren't they out here? And so at that time he was like, well, they're not having warm-up. And I'm like, well, here I am. I think at that time I was, 25 or 20, whatever, 4 years old. And I'm like, oh yeah, we're having warm-up. He's like, oh no, you're not having warm-up. And oh yeah, we're having warm-up. So anyway, he wanted the Zamboni to drive out there. I stood in front of the Zamboni, and then I think the lights went out, and eventually, that was the end of warm-up. But really, that was my first time I'd met Don. And I came back to the room and I said, who was that guy? And they go, that was the owner. I'm like, great.
He has a sense of leadership, and he has a sense of like I say, he's very driven. And so, Chevy doesn't come in and tell you this is what you're going to do, and he leads by example.
It was the Johnny and Chevy package, and they came and it was like, wow, we're legit now. I mean, I knew when Chevy started and when Johnny started that things are going to get good around here. It may not be this year, but things are going to be good and things are going to be fun.
It would herald a new era for the young franchise, one that was peppered with more than a few disagreements.
There were a lot of fights. I would say fights as much as a lot of arguments. A lot of not misunderstandings, but a lot of opportunities where they had different viewpoints, and they would hash them out, and they were both strong-willed, and it was great because they would both stand up for what they believed in. They both would fight for their position, and in the end, it was a combination of the two.
Despite their sometimes contentious relationship, it was under the duo's direction that the Wolves would ultimately bring 4 championships to this city.
You couldn't be more opposite. That's the truth. He's stone serious all the time. Yeah. Smiling is a misdemeanor. Laughing is a felony.
He would get fired up, even at us, maybe at John too, but they were like oil and water, but it worked.
The only thing that was going to matter was ultimately winning, and Johnny and I have had a great relationship over the years. I guess it would have to be a lot like a marriage in the sense that we freely fought with each other. We freely argued our point to to what would outsiders might think at different points in time would be to the detriment. But it was really, when the door opened after that, it was everybody was on the same page.
Chevy might be the best general manager in hockey, and I mean that. But he's so serious, and if you had a serious coach, a guy that was so serious, it would have never worked out. I mean, personalities are important. I mean, you guys. I mean, it was terrible how you guys would fight.
Yeah,
But we won 4 championships while you guys fighting.
It was
Fighting for the same goal.
Yes, yeah.
But
That's the one thing we knew. Like, it didn't matter what we argued about. But I'm going to tell you this: we both knew that both of our hearts were in the one direction, and that was to win. And like
clearly,
I don't think organizations excel if everybody agrees with each other.
It would be mere months after that press conference that the Wolves would hoist the first of their 4 cups with John Anderson and Kevin Cheveldayoff at the helm of this franchise. Tune in next time as Daring Greatly continues to chart the history of the Chicago Wolves in this exclusive docu-series.